If you take one step in the right direction, then the next thing is you consolidate that, and all of a sudden that becomes a habit, and then you take another step in the right direction.
Welcome to the Shift Work Athlete Podcast. We connect with shift workers conquering life challenges and chasing big fitness goals. The goal of this podcast is to inspire and motivate our shift work community to stay fit and stay healthy with such a unique lifestyle. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming back and listening to another one of my podcasts. My name is Spencer Barlow, the Shift Work Athlete. Today, I have Roger Sutherland. He has been in the law enforcement for at least 37 years now, age 57, and he is a very inspiring and empowering individual. I highly recommend you go over to his Facebook, A_healthy_shift. And he is full of knowledge. And so now I see him as the law enforcement nutritionist. So Roger, once again, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you please introduce yourself?
And, well, it's good morning to you,
good
Spencer,
morning.
from here in Melbourne. I'm in Melbourne in Australia. I just want to introduce myself. I work in law enforcement here in Melbourne in Australia. I've been in law enforcement since I was 20 years of age, and I've performed rotating 24/7 shift work for the entire 37 years. So I have a wealth of time under my belt as doing shift work.
Amazing, Roger. And it's great that, you get to share that information with all of us that are either new or have been in shift work for X amount of years. So once again, thank you so much for one, your service, and two, taking time out of your day to make room for other people to share your life experiences, plus educating yourself to continue to empower that education and really help the shift workers. So that's amazing.
I'm deeply humbled that you've had me on your podcast as well, because if we look at where we are, you're on the other side of the globe there in Canada.
Right.
I'm here in Melbourne in Australia, and we are cornering our shift workers from opposite ends of the globe.
That's so true.
And we'll round them up and we'll beat them into submission, I think, Spencer.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Roger. So let's get into what led you to working in law enforcement. Where did that passion come from, or was there somebody in the family that was in law enforcement? What was that like moment where you're like, I want to do this for the rest of my life, basically?
It's funny you should mention that. I think when I was very, very young, I had what looked like an official shirt. When I was 2 years old, Spencer, and my mum always said that it was my police shirt, So anyway, what happened was I had this shirt, and I followed on, and it's something that I just never ever let go of. And I joined when I was 20 years of age and started in law enforcement at 20 years of age from there. And I just basically, I went and got a job in retail to learn how to communicate with people, how to talk to people, how to deal with customer service issues and problems and things like that. And then it was the natural step for me until I got into the next. So, and I've been doing what I've been doing for the last 37 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. So the shirt was the inspiration. Did you, like, every time you saw a police officer or somebody in law enforcement, was it like, were you just excited to see them? Was that like what was that trigger though? Because I know you had the shirt, but what triggered that to finally go to school and educate yourself to finally become a part of the law enforcement?
Well, it's very glamorous the way it's portrayed, isn't it, Spencer? Like, if you look at it from the outside and you have a look at the way they advertise when they're recruiting in your area and things like that, it's all glamour. It's all horses and dogs and flashing lights, and wow, it's all very exciting. But they don't show you sitting in front of the computers, staring at a screen trying to catch up on all your paperwork and writing your citations, and it's. And standing at significant points of interest, guarding significant points of interest for hours on end, or walking shopping centres, and it doesn't show you all that glamorous side, but it was always very glamorous to me looking at it from the outside. I thought, I always wanted to be a vet when I was young. I was hell bent on being a vet. I was either going to I wanted to work with animals, and I ended up following that career basically into doing what I was doing so that I could actually work with animals in law enforcement. So I ended up actually doing that so I could combine the two passions until I actually got to the stage where, I spent majority of my career in dog handling.
Okay, that is really cool. And what kind of dogs, Roger?
Well, I had German Shepherd dogs.
Okay, beautiful.
They're the best dogs to work with. They're very versatile animals to work with. Now, they're not the specialist in any particular area, but they're the jack of all trades.
Right. Amazing. I actually have a German Shepherd myself, and that is really cool. I wish I could have, employed him into something like that, but no, he's the best dog I've ever could have had. Sometimes you get a new puppy and you just don't know what they're going to be like when they get older, right? And so I'm sure it's the same for you when you get I'm sure when you start to train your dogs, you get them from a puppy.
No, you actually don't start training your dog until they're around about 18 months of age, because you want to let them get that silliness out of their out of their life. We're all young. And it'd be like trying to teach a 5-year-old algebra. It's a pointless exercise.
Absolutely.
Let the 5-year-old be a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And it isn't until you turn 16 that that then the algebra comes, and then you wonder what on earth you're going to use it for down the track in life, don't you? But with dogs, we like to let dogs be themselves. Let them be themselves. Let them run around and be pups, and then as they start to mature, then so that we start to train them, and generally then you have them operational for probably 8 years or so, and until they retire. So,
wow.
Then you move on to the next one.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing, Roger. I love it how you tick wanting to be a vet and law enforcement and combine them together. Like that is very smart. And it's awesome that, you got that kind of experience. I always found that role within law enforcement very fascinating, being able to now you have to think about the the objective in front of you and your dog. What is your dog going to do? How are they going to react? Are they going to go too far? And I'm sure that's very hard. Were you aware of the shift work before you started in law enforcement?
Can anyone be prepared for it, Spencer?
No.
I know everyone says, oh, you've got to work nights, or you've got to work early mornings. Or See, as you're aware, Spencer, there's two different types of people. There's morning larks and there's night owls, you see. And I, through life, have always been a night owl.
Okay.
So, and for those people that don't understand, a morning lark is a person that wakes up, bang, and they're ready to go first thing in the morning. But by the early evening, they're tired. And then you've got the night owls, which really struggle in the morning, but they're wide awake late at night. Now, all my life, I've always been a night owl. So I always thought, shift work, yeah, because I think night shift. But no one forewarned me for the 6 a.m. and 5 a.m. starts.
The flip back, right?
Yeah, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
That becomes really bad. See, this is the factors that people don't think about with shift work as well, because they all think, I could work overnight because I can go to a nightclub and stay up all night. No problems at all.
No problem. But they don't.
I can do that, no problem at all.
Yeah, they don't express that. I also get to sleep in the next day after the nightclub and the drinking and wake up at 4 p.m. In the evening, right? And it's like, no,
that's right.
It doesn't work that way. Okay, so when you call it 24/7 shift, like, what were the blocks like? So, for example, like I work continentals, like, for example, tomorrow I work day shift 2 days on, and then I'm off for 3 days, and then I'm back in on a night shift. Was yours?
Okay, so for us, we are literally all over. There is no set pattern of shift at all.
So it's like an on-call.
We don't know what we're doing from one. I couldn't tell you what shifts I'm working in 4 weeks' time.
Okay.
I don't know, because it's not been written yet. So it's very dynamic. It's a very dynamic environment. So it's worse because you're in a situation where in your calendar you can actually put that it rotates every 8 days? Is it every 8 days? It rotates every 8 days. So
yeah, about a week. Yeah, but I'm going from nights to days constantly though. It's not like a whole week block. So,
but you could say every 8th day you'll be on that day.
Right.
Every 8th day, and then every 8th day it's a day off, and it keeps on rotating on.
Correct.
I know people, and I've got clients that work like they do 2 day shifts on, and then they have 1 day off, and then they do 2 nights of night shift, and then they do 3 days off.
Right.
And then they're back into it. So they can put in their calendar, years ahead, they know that every 8th day they're going to be doing something. But mine is all over the place. So I don't know, because it's such a dynamic environment that's required. We can be called in. It's a bit like I was reading an Instagram post yesterday about a lady that's that does flight monitoring with pilots and things like that. And, they get called in at the drop of a hat to work a night shift or a day shift or things like that. And I thought, that's pretty much like we are. We're all over the place. There's no consistency at all, which really stuffs around with you.
Yeah.
But going back to your original question, Spencer, sorry, but no one can prepare you for it, because what you think shift work is, it's not.
That's right. And that is really hard on the body. I have to say, for me, I get a whole year out schedule. Like, I know what I'm doing for a year, which is great. And so, it allows me to sit down, write a plan out and stick to that routine and build, let the body get used to it. Right. For you, like you said, it's random. Like that must be extremely challenging. And consistency is a big part of human life and that routine. So I can't even imagine for you how difficult that must be on a week to week, especially having a family and just trying to find time for your clients and stuff. So, thank you, like I said, for doing what you do. And as long as you're happy. Are you happy?
You better believe I'm happy. Like I'm transitioning. I'm in a situation, Spencer, let's be brutally honest, like I'm 57 years of age.
Right.
I could easily put the cue in the rack now and say, that's it, I'm done. I've done my 37 years. I could put the cue in the rack and go, I'm just going to, my superannuation's at a good stage. I could literally just sit there now and say, you know what, I'm just going to kick back, sit by the pool and just enjoy life.
Right.
But I've got too much passion to actually help people. I can see there's massive problems with people, but there's simple tweaks that people can put in place to do this. So what I did was, what started as a bit of a side hustle, I've had to turn into a business, and now I've literally had to grab the steering wheel with both hands, put both feet on the brake,
right, yeah,
while I'm building a whole back end now to try and cope with the business that's coming my way, because I'm doing, I'm creating digital products to put out there now in relation to help people with shift work and things like that. So, I don't want to get too far ahead here, Spencer, but, there's a lot going on in the background here. So if people look at my content on my Instagram at the moment, there's not a lot there because I just don't have the time.
Right.
I'm still working shift work. I'm still working 8 rotating shifts a fortnight, like 24/7. I still work a week of night shift. I start at 10 p.m. at night, 6 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
I do that for 7 nights in a row.
Yep.
But I've worked, when I say part-time, I still do the 8 shifts a fortnight, but every waking moment outside of that, other than the time that I'm asleep, but every waking moment is spent helping clients and trying to put together my business at the moment to cope with what's coming.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing that you're staying prepared. Okay, so let's just bring it back a little bit. When it comes down to you working these shifts, do you have any concrete routines that you stick to that allow you to feel accomplished throughout your day? That you're like, okay, mental check, I'm happy that I'm sticking to this routine that I'm, trying to stay consistent with your 24/7 shifts. Right.
Now, I know, if there's one thing I know, that regardless of what shift I'm on, Spencer, a non-negotiable for me is 12,000 steps a day.
Okay.
I just find that the steps are such a good way for a shift worker to relax. It's also such a good way for us to reset our circadian rhythm and expose ourselves to the blue light and suppress that melatonin and remind our bodies that it's daytime. So, and move. Our endocrine system is designed to move. So, walking is totally underestimated for so many reasons for health. So my non-negotiable is that. Now, when it comes to routine, I really don't get to have a routine at all. But I know one thing for sure, that when I finish my shift, whether it's, if it's an afternoon shift, I go home, I have a small protein and carbohydrate meal, because this is important. We'll talk about this later, but I have a small protein and carbohydrate meal. And then I go to bed and I sleep. I try and get as much sleep as I can possibly sleep. I relax with that. And then when I wake up, I get up, I have my coffee, which you'll hate, but I have my caffeine. And then what I do is I go for my walk. Now, if I'm in a training phase at the moment, now we've been very inconsistent here at the moment because we've been locked down and the gyms have been closed. But another non-negotiable for me is to give myself 45 minutes to go and resistance train not every day, but at least 5 days a week. I try and resistance train.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
doesn't have to be brutal, Spencer, as you know.
Not
You've
at
only
all.
just got to go and turn the weight over, you know.
Get the
All
blood
we're
flowing.
doing is stimulating the muscle. That's the most important thing. So, and I also find that very therapeutic mentally for me. It's a great escape from
100%.
the pressures of shift work and the job that we do. So it's really, really important to get that in. So, and I make sure, another non-negotiable for me is to make sure that when I'm going into a block of shifts that I've got my meals prepared. I know that when I'm on day shift, these are the meals I take. I know when I'm on afternoon shift, these are the meals that I take. And I know that when I go into night shift, these are the meals I need, and I have myself prepared. Being prepared is everything. It's just everything.
Everything. And I could not agree with you more. Actually, before I even started working the job that I work at, I had a whole document written out of the supplements I was going to take, the meals I was going to bring, what kind of sleep I was going to get, because I was so passionate about, my fitness or my non-negotiables, right? And I did not want to see those getting thrown on the back burner. And I think if I didn't have that plan, I personally think I would be in a much different state of mind and state of health right now. So it's great that you are like, hey, I need to get my steps in. I need to get my 45 minutes of training in at least 5 times a week. And, like you said before we got into the podcast, is that, you're very evidence-based. And if you look at the evidence, that exercise is a number one contributor to shift workers' success and longevity of health. All you got to do is move, lift up a little bit of weight. You don't have to kill yourself. Right?
No.
And it doesn't even have to be 45 minutes. If you could do 5 to 10 to 15 minutes of some sort of exercising that gets the blood flowing and the body nice and warm, you're living life.
I think the most important thing here to understand, just from an evidence-based perspective, now that we're talking about that 45 minutes, is it is vital for our insulin sensitivity. Now, without getting technical here, just getting the muscle, telling the muscle that it's required and maintaining that lean muscle mass is imperative. And it's so important for our shift workers to actually burn out the shift that way, because otherwise we have all this glucose just floating around in our bloodstream. We got those triglycerides floating around in our bloodstream where, some people are very sedentary overnight as well when they're working night shift.
Me.
I'll go into that. Yep. We're very sedentary overnight. If you look at yourself, with what you do, Spencer, you'd be sitting there for how long? 12 hours?
Correct.
Pretty much.
So I'm a crane operator. So yeah, majority of the time, and it depends. I rotate through 4 different cranes throughout the 2 shifts. So some nights I might be on only 1 crane, and some other nights I might be going to 2 different cranes. And yeah, I could literally be sitting there the whole time.
That's a long way less than ideal. So if you think about that, have a think about what's going on with your bloodstream. Have a think about, because your muscles are not being told that they're required. Your brain's going a million miles an hour, right? Because you've got to be concentrated. You've got to be thinking about what you're doing. But your digestive tract is asleep, right? It is asleep. And that's the actual situation. So even though we're awake and looking around, our digestive tract is asleep. So you sitting there and being sedentary is a major problem metabolically for you.
Right.
It's a major problem. So to just go and turn over the weight is just telling the muscle, hey, we need you, and we're getting everything transferring from the bloodstream into the muscle, going backwards and forwards, and this is how we avoid this metabolic syndrome that shift workers really, really suffer from.
Oh, 100%. And I couldn't agree with you. I make sure so we do have stairs that go up to our crane. So, I always make sure that I go to the washroom. As soon as I feel like I need to go to the washroom, I'm going down the stairs. I'm avoiding the elevator, and I plan walk times in between my lifts, so I'm not constantly operating, which is great. So I do get windows of opportunity where I can, I'll do a little bit of exercise or movement in my crane. I'll stretch and make sure that I'm not staying or sitting on my butt for the entire duration of my shift, because it is so easy, and it's how do I want to say this? It's sad to watch others sacrifice opportunities that are just so easily in front of them. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I made sure that I planned to have a routine before I even got the job, because I knew I was going to sit a lot. And I was like, I am going to figure out what kind of exercises that I could do that are going to allow me to feel alive and excited for when I'm done work. And you know what? Triathlon was that thing. And it's just like, I really wish more people would try to find something that they could grasp onto that would keep them accountable and a non-negotiable.
Spencer, what I absolutely loved about what you said initially was you wrote it down, and how important it is to write it down and have a visual reminder. This is imperative for people, I think, because Spencer, if someone came to you today and said, I want to be like you, what do you do? And if you wrote that out for someone, it would be incredibly overwhelming for somebody new. It would be incredibly overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like, even me, with what I do, which has now become a daily routine for me every single day, would be incredibly overwhelming. If I said to a client, right, this is what you've got to do to end up where I'm at today, they would look at me and go, are you crazy? Yeah. Like, I can't do all of that. Mm-hmm. I even put just little habits in place for people, and they can't even follow little habits at the moment, you know, because it's too overwhelming.
Right.
So it's got to be baby steps. Now, Spencer, you know, our habits, you know, and I'm going to use the famous words of James Clear here, the one that wrote Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read the book. Have you read the book Atomic Habits?
Yes, I have. He's got some good podcasts.
Well, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
It's not the habit that fails.
It's batching.
It's the processes. It's the processes that you put in place to get to the habit.
Right.
This is the problem that people have, you know, today. And I think, you know, to anybody that hasn't read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, do yourself a favour. It is an absolute life-changing book.
I agree.
It is absolutely incredible because it teaches you a lot about yourself and the certain things that you need to do to get in place. Now, when you were talking about writing things out, I think this is important to have a visual reminder every day, you know, like every day, we clean our teeth. You know, we go to the bathroom, we clean our teeth, we go to bed, or we get up in the morning, we clean our teeth, and we go out to the day. We're creating a habit doing that. How do we do that? You know, we create that habit. So it's putting processes in place to get to that. Now, you knew that your training is so important to you, Spencer. Before you actually went into your shift working job, you were planning ahead. What is there that I can do to make sure that these systems don't fall down, that I've got these systems to help me, to remind me and they became non-negotiables for you, Spencer, you know, like, and you knew, this is when I'm going to take my supplements. This is what I'm going to eat here. I'm still going to drink my water when I wake up. I'm still going to go for my walk. And I will look ahead at my shifts. This is a block that I'm blocking out to go for my run. This is when I'm going to bike. This is when I'm going to swim. These are the days. And if you work to that routine, you actually create a really good set of strategies to move forward. And you know, as well as I do, baby steps. You only have to take one step in the right direction to start off with. And once you lay that foundation, because we've got a habit stack, you know, we talk about habit stacking. And if you take one step in the right direction, then the next thing is you consolidate that, and all of a sudden that becomes a habit, and then you take another step in the right direction. And then it isn't until you look back in 2 years' time that you go, geez, I do this automatically, I do this automatically, I do this automatically. I feel fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel fantastic.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is habit stacking, and you know it's so easy, and baby steps are a hard thing for a lot of people, unfortunately, and it's just opening up your mind to not be so narrow about just try, and if you fail, try again. And you know, if something isn't working, well, there's other solutions out there, and you know, it's just the fact that you could have change and grow. It's just that you're not going to see it tomorrow. You might see it 2 or 3 weeks from now. So just be patient along the journey and just know you'll get there eventually. And, you know, it's like learning a new skill. You becoming a nutritionist. Like, I'm sure it was a little bit challenging at the beginning. You might have had some knowledge just from reading articles, etc. But once you're in the classroom, you're just like, oh, this is overwhelming. But you know, every day that you showed up, the more that you showed up, the more you're going to learn. And, you know, down the line, you're just like, wow, this is second nature, right?
That is 100% true there, Spencer, because People say, where do you start?
Yeah.
You start by walking around the block.
Yeah.
That's where you start. Just go for a walk around the block. You start by, how many people take a phone call and sit on the couch and talk to their friend on the phone?
Get
you
outside.
start by taking them for a walk.
Go buy a dog.
Take them for a walk. Take the dog for a walk.
Yeah.
Get a dog and take the dog for a walk. When you go for a walk in the morning and you look at the women that are out walking or the men that are out walking first thing in the morning, there is a correlation here between why they look good.
100%.
They're out walking.
Yeah, and they're getting some sun and fresh air.
Yeah. Well, you see, this is the other thing as well. But people walking. So just start just by walking, just getting those steps. Set yourself a step goal. It might be 5,000 steps to start off with, right. And you might think, oh, that just seems so overwhelming.
Yep.
And 5,000 steps can seem overwhelming to some people, but what a great target to start with.
Yep.
I'll set my tracker on my watch, and because everyone's wearing, they're wearing Apple Watches or Garmin's or they're wearing Fitbits or things like that. They really are dime a dozen now. They're so cheap.
That's so true. That's so true.
So you can get a Fitbit and set yourself a goal. Now everybody says, "Oh yeah, but the Fitbit, it's not accurate because it actually counts steps while you're just sitting there." Well, that's true, but it's still comparing today to yesterday, and it's still giving you a milestone. Like it's comparing last Monday to this Monday. And the more we track, and I always say as well, that which is tracked is improved.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? So if you track it, you improve it. If you measure yourself, you will improve it. If you weigh yourself, you will improve it. If you track your steps, you will improve it. Anything that you track, you improve, because subconsciously you want to beat what you had last time, and that's what happens. And you become with results. I mean, as you start to get results, so comes more and more adherence. Now, I spoke about this on my story the other day, and action precedes inspiration, right? And action does precede inspiration. If you're sitting around waiting for motivation or you're sitting around waiting for inspiration, it ain't coming, Spencer. No. It's not coming. No, you're not going to sit there and no, they're not. No lightning bolt is going to hit you and go, oh my God, I'm motivated. This is not happy clapper stuff. It doesn't happen that way. You don't go and sit in a pew in a church and the inspiration comes to you. It doesn't. The action that you took was to go to the church and sit there in the first place. And this is what people misunderstand. You have to take one step in the right direction because the action precedes the inspiration. The action precedes the motivation. And the more you step in the right direction, even with the little things, then the more inspiration you get because you get more and more and more adherence. You become more obsessed with what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Absolutely. That's great advice, Roger. So I just want to go back to nutrition and sleep. Has your sleep and nutrition changed throughout the years? Like, I know when you started at 20 years old, I'm sure you could have ate everything that was in front of you and it didn't affect your stomach. And maybe at the time you weren't unaware of how your gut might have been affecting your mental status as well. And then, as you got maybe into a decade into your profession, did the food change? How did it affect your sleep? Could you touch a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I was always of the belief, like majority of people are, Spencer, that when you go on to night shift, you literally just flip your meals. So you still have breakfast, lunch and dinner through the night, So I would go to work and be starting work at 11 p.m. at night and finishing at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I'd be having my breakfast at work at 11. I'd be having my lunch at 3 o'clock, and I'd be having my main meal at 3 o'clock in the morning. And geez, Spencer,
it's heavy.
I would be cooking up, going into night shift, I'd be cooking up buckets of pasta and a bolognese sauce and things like that, and putting those together. I'd be having that at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
When I think back to that now, now people say, it comes down to it doesn't matter, it's calories in, calories out. I will be very clear with you that the evidence is going to show in years to come that meal timing does matter. They say in a fat loss journey that it doesn't matter. I'm telling you now that research is really, really starting to show now that we actually meal timing does matter a lot, particularly for shift workers. It makes an enormous difference, right? So we do not flip our meals. Now, I've got a post on my Instagram in relation to this as to what to do. And it's literally, it's just touching on it, and I need to flesh it all out, and I'll be writing a blog on it as well, because it is imperative now. One of the things about shift work is research doesn't show what we should do. It doesn't. There's no research that tells a shift worker what they actually should be doing. But there is tons and tons and tons of research which shows us what we should not be doing. Right. And there is a difference there, right?
Yeah.
There's a massive difference.
Yeah, I agree.
But I will be very clear with shift workers that are listening to this podcast today that we should be fasting between 12 midnight and 6 a.m. in the morning.
Amen.
And we should not be eating.
Yeah.
We should not be eating at all.
I agree.
And there's a very, very valid reason for this, right? Because one of the biggest problems that shift workers have is our fatigue. We are tired, and therefore it elevates our ghrelin in our system. Now, without going technical, there's two hormones that contribute to our hunger signals. There's leptin and there's ghrelin. When our leptin is up and our ghrelin is down, we're not hungry. And this generally happens when we're well rested and we've exercised and we're feeling good, you know. But then when we're fatigued and we're tired, which is classic night shift, our ghrelin is up. What are we looking for when that happens? We're looking for glucose, and we look for that hard hit, and we want that hit. So what happens is we consume glucose, but our body is asleep. You know, we're eating the chips. You know, like I feel sorry for our nurses and our frontline health workers and people like that. But what they're actually doing is they're reaching for that chip cart that's got the chips, the chocolates, the lollies on it. We're having pizzas in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
People are bringing the cakes in. We are eating those. I need people to understand, and it's so important that people understand this. Your body is not processing this food the way it does when you do it during the day. It is simply not.
Correct.
To explain to people in a very, very simple way, to explain insulin resistance to a person, what happens is when we consume food, the glucose are like passengers on a bus, and it's floating around in our bloodstream, and it gets transported by the insulin to our muscle, right? Now, our muscle is the bus stop. So what actually happens is when the bus stops at the bus stop is not open, so the passengers are stuck on the bus, right? So what actually happens is the bus just has to keep going, and the bus gets more and more and more full. And in the end, what it actually does is it parks the passengers, which is all the glucose, as a fat in our adipose cells to be used later on when we do need it.
And more buses
now,
keep coming.
This is a real problem.
Yep.
And because what do? We eat glucose, we eat our lollies, chops, and chips, we get a spike, we feel great for a while, and then we crash bad. So what do? Repeat. Up, down, up, down, up, down. So all we're doing is we're parking all this glucose in our system as a fat. Now, this is for night shift. Now, research also shows, Spencer, that our BMR lowers by 200 calories overnight for shift workers. That's our BMR. Now, this is not our exercise or anything. This is actually our BMR. So our system is actually running 200 calories slower. So when you have that chocolate bar at 400 calories, you've actually overeaten by about 600 calories.
Yeah, and it's making it harder for your body to actually digest it and flush it out too, right?
It can't digest it because it's asleep. Our body is in a parasympathetic state. It is actually in a rest and digest state. It's sleeping all the way through.
Okay, yeah. So what age did you start to notice that your nutrition was starting to get out of whack and that you started to educate yourself?
Okay, I didn't realise that it was actually nutrition that was causing my problems. I suffer from a condition that's known as sacroiliitis, which is inflammation in the hip joint.
Okay.
Chronic, like really chronic. And I went to see a specialist in relation to this because I was a dog handler. I was a canine handler. I was getting to the stage where I was crippled. I could hardly move. I was about 45 years of age, and it had never been diagnosed that I was crippled. I was having no end of drama in relation to this. If I'd been sitting around for a while and then I'd go to move, it would hurt. And I went and saw a specialist, a rheumatologist, who then diagnosed anti-inflammatories and told me I'd be on anti-inflammatories for the rest of my life.
Antibiotics.
I freaked.
Yeah. Wow. No, not cool.
You got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Anti-inflammatories all my life, ruining my gut health.
Yeah.
And when it didn't work, he upped it. And then when it didn't work, he just kept upping it. And I said, no. So I then went off and nutritionally started researching natural anti-inflammatory type foods and things that I could actually blitz and consume. And so my passion for nutrition started, because I then noticed that I started feeling so much better. Nutrition is medicine, Spencer. Make no bones about it. You know, we are what we eat. People don't realise that they feel like rubbish because they're eating rubbish.
That's right.
And you don't realise that you can actually break into that cycle and get yourself feeling so much better. So I noticed that there was a massive difference by changing my diet and eating the macronutrients, the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats in the right ratios, and actually consuming a really good range of micronutrients, which are, all of our vitamins and our minerals in a broad diet, how much better I was just feeling all round and getting that movement into my system. Now, this sort of started when I was about 40, around about 50, around 50 years of age, right? This all started when I was around about 50 years of age, and then I developed such a passion for it that I actually decided that I went through my own transformation and started to learn a bit more about macronutrient timing and learn about nutrition. That I went and actually saw a well-renowned nutritionist, Martin McDonald from Mac Nutrition Uni. I went and saw him speak here in Melbourne. I was so impressed. I actually went and met him afterwards. I spoke to him and I said to him, I want to help shift workers. Now, he had been ranting about shift workers on his Instagram saying, if you've got a friend that does shift work, tell them not to, because it's the worst possible thing that you can do.
Yep.
Shift work is the demon. Don't do shift work. It's the worst possible thing you can do. Spencer, there's no argument. I agree with that.
Yep.
And I know you agree with that as well.
I do.
Shift work is absolutely the worst thing that we can possibly do for our body.
Yep.
But when you call 911, you need someone, police, fire, ambulance to come. When you go to a hospital because you've hurt yourself, you want an ambulance to pick you up and take you to the hospital. You want a doctor to see you. You want a nurse to come and help you. We forget we've got Uber drivers, taxi drivers. Industry demands that we run 24/7 now, because when you order your new iPhone, you want your new iPhone within days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like 50% of the world or something like that. I don't even know what the
I
percentage
can
is.
tell you I can tell you the stats, and it'll blow your brain.
Yeah.
In Australia alone, we have a population of around, I think it's about 28 million people in Australia, which is not massive. We have 2 million shift workers here.
Wow.
2 million designated shift workers in Australia alone. Now, get ready for this one. In the US, the United States, 22 to 24% of the US population is estimated to be shift workers. Spencer, that's 75 million people.
That's no joke. It's sad, and like you said, it's in demand. It has to be there, right? Like somebody's got to do it. Somebody wants that iPhone or get picked up, and it's funny. Sorry, just to touch on the fact that shift work isn't the support for shift workers isn't like mainstream. It isn't something
there is
nothing, right? And
nothing.
It's blows my mind. And okay, so for the company that I work for, they do have health and wellness programs that are implemented and that they're optional, and they'll send out emails and stuff like that. But I really wish that they would be doing more like talks and like there would be like a pamphlet that you'd get as soon as you start your job. Hey, these are some things we need you to be aware of. Like more education in the hands and face to face, other than an email and say, these are what we have. It's optional. You will be changing a lot of lives if more people are talking about what it is that shift workers go through and experience. Can I just bring back just a little bit when it came down to you starting your journey to heal your inflammation and your hips? That is such a scary feeling that you potentially might have had to go down a different career path, because of that inflammation. What were some of those foods that you had to cut out, Roger?
Your processed foods, Spencer, I think you've got to cut out a lot of your processed foods, and it's more about introducing a broad range plant-based diet. I mean, I know there's no argument here. People get confused when you say a broad range plant-based diet because they think, oh, no, I'm not going vegetarian. That's not what it's about. A plant-based diet. A lot of people say to me when they come across me and they know who I am, what's the best diet? The best diet's a diet you can stick to start off with. That's the best diet. Whatever you can stick to, that's the best diet, right? But if anybody says, what should you be eating? All the colours. It's the broad range. The Mediterranean style of eating is definitely the best, to have all your legumes, your grains, your proteins, all your vegetables, your fruits, your olive oils, all of those sort of things. It's to have all of that. When you get all of those things in and you understand micronutrients, and putting those foods in, having your salads and mixing lots of colours in. Get a fruit bowl and pick 2 different pieces of fruit every single day and put those in, because you're getting the fibre, you're getting the fructose, which is right. And, the sugar in fruit is completely different to anything else. It's not, we don't have to worry about the fruit. No one ever looked at anybody down the street that was overweight and went, oh my God, that person eats too much fruit, Yeah. No one ever looks at anybody like that. No one ever looks at someone and goes, oh my God, look at that person there. They've eaten far too many vegetables.
Right.
You don't. So why are people so paranoid about eating fruit and eating vegetables? 2 pieces of fruit into your diet every day, you're getting so many nutrients. If you pick all the variety of colours, bananas, you pick bananas and mangoes and grapes and apples and, all of these, all the different colours. The analogy that I'm using there is look at all the different colours. The more colours and the more skins and the more fruits that you actually get in, the better off you are nutritionally. So that's what helped me. And, and getting that movement in too, walking and moving and getting that nutrition in, it changed my life, Spencer. And that's what made me more and more obsessed with learning as much as I could possibly learn about nutrition, because I then started to learn nutrition is medicine, and you can literally not only change your health, but you can change your mental health as well, because the gut-brain axis is so much research being done now in relation to the gut-brain axis,
We have 2 brains.
And what I'm talking about there, just to explain that, is there is a connection between our brain and our gut.
100%.
And it is, if your brain is right, your gut is right.
Yep.
If your gut is right, your brain is right,
Yep.
Makes a big difference there.
Yeah.
So that's how I became obsessed with nutrition. So then I went off, and I didn't want to learn from the bros. I didn't want to learn the bro science. I wanted to learn evidence-based. So I went to the gold standard. I went to Mac Nutrition. They are the leading evidence-based study in probably in the world. And I went off and I learnt evidence-based nutrition and evidence-based practices in relation to that. And now I'm learning more and more and more about chrononutrition, which is meal timing.
Awesome. When it comes down to the inflammation, I think I think that has to be number 1 for shift workers. Like, I know there's gut symptoms, but I think inflammation is number 1.
Totally. Shift work brings on stress. We don't realise, like, if you think about our shift workers, like, don't get me wrong here, but we've got taxi drivers and Uber drivers and baggage handlers. They're not under mental stress. They're not under mental stress at all. But by God, Spencer, they are totally under physical stress. Their body is stressed all the time. And with stress brings an increase in cortisol. And when cortisol is increased in our body, we become very insulin resistant, and it creates weight gain, it creates, inflammation, it causes all sorts of stress. So getting our nutrition right, the meal timing right, just makes such a massive difference for us.
Yeah. And it's great that you've mentioned, cutting out your last meal at 12 o'clock. Like, I do it even earlier than that. I'll hit probably about 10 o'clock sometimes. And if I'm still a little hungry, okay, I'll have a little snack. But yeah, 12 o'clock is non-negotiable. Do you also fast during the day?
No, I don't fast during the day. No. If I go on a bit of a fat loss journey, I will fast until after lunch. It's not intermittent fasting per se. I will just cut out basically a meal. So a bit of time restricted feeding would probably be the best way of putting it. But I would, but definitely at night, my last meal is, around about 10, between 10 and 11 o'clock at the latest will be my last meal. And I won't. And then I just drink sparkling water, and I will not have caffeine. I know, we've talked about caffeine, and I know you're a massive advocate for the no caffeine, and that's perfectly understandable. You've got to do what works for you. But I won't have caffeine after midnight, but I will have the caffeine, because I find that caffeine, and when I say caffeine, I drink long black, so I don't drink, I'm not putting milk and, and syrups and things like that into my coffee, which is diabolical for calories.
Sorry, what's a long black? That's new to me. So I just learned about, I think it's like a white coffee, or I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. It's something white coffee.
A long black is literally just a big espresso with a lot more hot water in it. So like an espresso coffee, like a shot of coffee or 2 shots of coffee filled up with water. Okay. So yeah, long black. All right, so it's a long black coffee. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
funny. We have two different,
it's funny,
two different types of language barriers, right? Like of how we talk about certain things. Like I think you said fortnight, and I think that's 2 weeks.
Oh,
right?
yeah, sorry, yeah,
It's all good.
Fortnight. Yeah, 2 weeks. See, we're from the English side, so the English side here,
No,
so we
cool.
talk fortnight. So yeah, it's 2 weeks.
No, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
so with the coffee, the long black is just an espresso with, a double shot of espresso with extra water in
Okay.
it. So I'm drinking that black because that's 0 calorie, Spencer. So and I will put like a couple of drops of an artificial sweetener in it, which is like just to give it a bit of flavour. And that helps you to reduce calories. People underestimate that they're sitting there at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning drinking their coffees with their syrup in it and their milk in it and things like that. Those calories add up.
Absolutely.
Plus, we're insulin resistant. The caffeine's going in. People do not understand the impact that caffeine has on our bodies, full stop. Now, I know I'm talking your language here, so over to you.
Hey, no, I love coffee. Don't get me wrong. It's only been 2.5 months now. I think for me, it came down to I was dealing with some GI issues. So I felt like my gut barrier was potentially getting not penetrated, but getting, how do I say, just damaged, right? And so I was like, okay, what if I cut out some coffee? So I did that, and I just started to see the benefits of just actually cutting it out. When it came down to my own personal energy with my training as a triathlete, I run hot. I'm a very hot person. So if I have coffee and I train, my heart rate stays very elevated. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm starting to see that I'm not so hot with cutting out the coffee anymore. My heart rate's nice and low. I'm able to stay nice and calm. And then, same thing at nighttime. It's like, okay, your body's not used to having this kind of caffeine punch, right? So, what I did before was very similar to you. And I trust me, I don't hate coffee. I love it. I think about it every day, especially when my girlfriend's having it. And even today, I'm like, I want coffee. It's a drug. It literally makes me feel like I'm addicted to it, right? So there's that other side of coffee that I'm kind of happy that it's now I'm able to build that self-control, being able to cut it out of the picture and just take a step back and be like, you know what, I choose when I want to have coffee doesn't choose me kind of mindset. But I would have one coffee before my night shift, and I was fine. But like I said, it just came down to like, okay, what is natural, right? And I just felt like having coffee at nighttime is just not natural. You're going to increase cortisol in your body and add stress, right? Yep. And I'm already putting so much stress on my body through the training that I do, right? The duration and the amount of training I do is not natural for a lot of people. Like I said, I'm doing about 10 to almost 15 hours of extra training on top of I think it's like 84 hours of shift work, right? So flip-flopping between my shifts and, the sleep schedule and stuff like that. I'm just looking at it from how can I minimize my inflammation and cortisol and stress in the body. And I just thought, you know what? Coffee is one of those things that might be affecting me as an athlete. So yeah, it might be perfectly fine for, the day-to-day person is doing very, low stress, moderate exercise. Yeah, it's okay. Have it in your routine. But, I was getting myself into a bad habit where it wasn't just one, it was like a whole Yeti and it was a 20-ounce coffee, right? But, you gotta do trial and error. I will eventually go back to it. I'm actually scared to go back to it because it was so hard to come off of it. So, like I said, I don't hate it. I do love it. I think about it daily. It's just for somebody that is more on the athletic or higher caliber of training that may be cutting out things that are causing more stress to your body. You have the choice, right? And you just got to figure what that is. So that's my...
Totally agree with you. Particularly, I love what you said about with the body being stressed. Our bodies are terribly stressed when it comes to night shift, and people people totally underestimate the actual stress that their body is under. Caffeine does, like, there's no secret. Like, people have only got to have a think about it. When you wake up in the morning and you have that first coffee, what's the first thing that you need to do? Go to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
So what sort of an impact is it having on your gut?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and one of the things that we look at with clients that have got IBS-D as well is how much caffeine do they drink? Irritable bowel syndrome, which is the diarrhea perspective. People that have got that, we look at how much caffeine are you consuming because it does trigger problems in the gut and we can cut the caffeine out. So, yeah. But by the same token, Spencer, you can actually caffeine for you, being as how you're not using it, caffeine tablets would actually give you such an enormous edge when it came to when you do your triathlon. Like, you can manipulate the caffeine through that. Well, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Well,
but
I will use it for training purposes. Like, for example, I have a half Ironman coming up, and there's gels that I'll be consuming along the way, and some of those gels will have caffeine. So for me, yeah, it does come down to, for training purposes is when I will start to use that as a benefit. But if I'm just, doing an hour workout and I don't need a lot of fuel for that workout, if I could cut out the caffeine, awesome, because I'm already consuming glucose and other sugars to make sure that, I have the proper fuel to burn off nice and fast. But when I have to do something that's going to be a 5-hour, 6-hour day, I'm going to need that little bit of a kick in the butt.
Right. The caffeine, the caffeine's a no-brainer on night shift. You just can't have it. It's just that simple. If you know how caffeine actually works in your body, you can't have it. You must cut it out. I know we all know people, and people that are listening will turn around and say, "Oh yeah, it doesn't matter because I can actually have caffeine at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, and I can still go to sleep." And that's true. Mm-hmm. You absolutely can go to sleep, no doubt about it.
It's a quality.
But let me just tell you what you're doing to yourself because you are not getting that deep restorative sleep.
Absolutely.
You are not asleep properly. You think you are, and when you wake up, the last thing you need when you're on night shift is to be woken up by anything. Caffeine is not allowing you to sleep, to go into that deep wave sleep.
Correct.
It's not allowing you to go into that deep sleep.
Correct.
So therefore, you are not sleeping properly. And this is why you will wake up tired. And what's the first thing you reach for? Caffeine.
Yeah.
And so the cycle continues to go. And this is the biggest problem.
Yep.
So that covers the caffeine side of things.
Can I add on that? Actually, one other thing I noticed, Roger, when I cut out the caffeine, I did not have that fog anymore. I found that I was able to wake up way more fast. I would have my water, I would have a little bit of food after my night shift, and I would feel fine. And I think back to the time that I was drinking coffee, that I'd wake up and I would just be just a state of fog. My body would just be restless, and the first thing I'm thinking about, like you said, is you reach for your coffee. And like, as soon as I had that coffee, I felt better. So I could see how people are like, oh, I need that coffee because now I can be myself. And it's like, whoa, what if I just completely eliminated it? What person will I be then? And that was a big win for me that I noticed, is that I don't get that fog feeling after night shift anymore.
There's a very good reason for that, though. And I won't go into the science behind it. But if you read about adenosine and the way adenosine and caffeine works on the brain, that will explain to you exactly why that happened to you. Because, caffeine mimics the adenosine molecule and attaches to the brain receptor. And this is, and that will explain to you the exact reason. So if anybody's interested, just go and read about adenosine and caffeine. And it's really, really interesting. And that's the very reason why you get that brain fog. And that's why when you have the caffeine, it stimulates you because it blocks the adenosine receptor.
Right.
So that's the reason.
And that brain fog is only going to get worse the more you keep stacking that coffee and the amount of coffee that you keep drinking, right? So
spot on. Absolutely, it doesn't. This is why we end up with those headaches when you haven't had the caffeine.
Yeah, trust me. Those first 2 days of being caffeine free, like, you feel it, and it comes fast. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, done it ever.
Yeah.
And it's a beauty as well if you haven't had it.
Yeah.
But so we went back. Can I just drag you back just for a second to the meals as well on night shift?
Yeah, please.
For people not eating on night shift, all right? Now, I just want to explain something that is really important to your ladies that are listening. And it is really, really important because the women, our shift workers, and particularly our sedentary shift workers, the people that are sitting around, women suffer horrendously from a lot of gas and bloating, and particularly around their cycles.
Right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of women are sitting there and they're nodding, and they suffer horrendously from their gas and bloating around that cycle. Let me just explain a number of things about, biologically, women are completely different to men. They don't just look different. Don't say, yeah, Rog, but they are. They're totally different internally.
Right. Yeah.
A female stomach has less acid in it to start off with, so it takes them longer to digest food than it does a male. A female's a female's stomach actually empties slower than a male's stomach empties. And when the food goes into the digestive tract and it's processed through the digestive tract, a female's colon is actually longer than a male's colon. Now, where is the colon? The colon in a female is right next to their internal reproductive organs, right? And also, women are designed to childbear so their hips are more open. So what actually happens is that colon is slower to empty in females as well. Now, you might wonder where the hell I'm going with this, but just hear me out for a second and let me just explain
This is good.
Women actually have got a lot of feces in their colon sitting right next to their reproductive organs, which are internal. See, with men, our reproductive organs are external. Our colon is shorter. Our stomach empties quicker. We evacuate our bowel a lot quicker. Everything it clears out a lot quicker.
So there's more chemicals
Women
being
suffer
reproduced.
from gas. Yeah. Women suffer horrendously from gas and bloating digestion. And if you think about it, a lot of women suffer horrendously around that time of the month. When they're week 4 of their cycle, which is leading into the menstruation period, they suffer horrendously in that week 4. And the reason why they're suffering so horrendously is because their internal reproductive organs are very inflamed, sore. Women have described it to me that it feels like you're having a piece of barbed wire drag through your internals, which you and I can't understand that.
Not at all.
I mean, we don't understand it, but that's what I've been told, and I imagine it must be absolutely horrendous. Right. And you've got a bowel and a colon sitting there that's full of feces right next to it, aggravating it all the time. Right. Now, where am I going with this? Couple that with a digestive tract that's asleep overnight. Right. We have a massive problem here, Spencer, right? For females, a massive problem. So we need a solution. And a lot of women, when they think about this situation, what they actually get is they find if they were to look back at the times that this happens, they've been more sedentary. Now females don't want to move. When they feel that way and they're feeling bloated, all they want to do is lie around with a hot water bottle and curl up in a corner and suck their thumb because they feel awful. Right. But actually the best thing they can do is get up, drink a lot of water, keep drinking, keep well hydrated and move. So people that have got a sedentary job, if you've got 911 dispatchers or 911 call takers, or you've got people that are sedentary that are listening to your job and listening to this podcast and they're females, just on your breaks going for a walk and drinking lots of water overnight. We need to drink more water overnight anyway. Yes. Get that system moving. Get that system moving. By getting that moving, you're actually removing the agitator away from your reproductive organs, which are already inflamed.
Yeah. And there's teas that they could have to help with that as well. Like if you're trying to avoid the caffeine and you're not, somebody that likes to drink a lot of water, I love teas, and they're extremely beneficial for your gut.
Yes. And so many different ones, your peppermint teas and things like that can be calming. But we want things to move through the gut. So I have a number of strategies that I actually use with my shift working clients. The benefits have been massive, Spencer, that have made such a difference to them. And the feedback that I get from them is enormous. And there's 2 strategies that I'd like to encourage our shift workers that are listening to employ every single day. And this is something that the feedback I get is enormous. Number 1, as soon as you wake up, a hydrolyte, 500 mils of water and a hydrolyte. As soon as you wake up, get those electrolytes into your system. You are already struggling. Your body is struggling. The chances are that because you've got to sleep and you don't want to be interrupted, you'll be dehydrated.
So what are some examples of electrolytes? Sorry to interrupt you. What are some products that are...
Well, there's a product called Hydrolyte here in Australia. I don't know whether you have... Do you have Hydrolyte in Canada or US?
I'm not 100% sure. I use more like salt and stuff like that.
Yeah. Same thing, Spencer. You can do sodium. You can put a bit of sodium in your water and things like that as well. Okay. That's really good. And a lot of people go, but if you put pink salt, pink salt into your water, it doesn't smell as, it doesn't taste.
Add some lemon to it, but you'll be okay.
Yeah, massive. Yeah, it makes a massive difference. It's really, really good. But getting those electrolytes into your system when you first wake up is really good. For the ladies, a Barocca as well. Now, I'm probably using an Australian term here as well.
You definitely are.
Barocca is, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
What I might do, I think, what I will do is when you post this, I'll actually post some links to these products. I'll do some research.
Yeah, add them in the description.
I'll do some research through iHerb, and I'll have a look for similar type products. I've just had someone contact me from the UK asking me about Hydrolyte, not Hydrolyte, the next one that I'm about to talk about, which is Metamucil, which is a psyllium husk. Do you have Metamucil in Canada?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I also encourage my shift workers, particularly my females, to have a teaspoon of Metamucil twice a day, and build it up to a tablespoon. Now, there's a reason for this. That's because it's a soluble fibre, which means it absorbs water, it forms a gel, and it runs through the system really well. It is so important for our females to keep that digestive tract moving all the time, particularly as they're coming into week 4 of their cycle, to keep that moving and keep that bowel and everything really empty. And it's a game changer, Spencer. It's an absolute game changer for these people that are taking the electrolytes when they first wake up or before they go in for their shift, whichever way you cut it. Probably much the same thing for most people. For the ladies to have the Baroccas, which are a B complex, and I'll research it and I'll post the links underneath the when you post. And the other thing as well is to have this Metamucil when they first wake up, to have a teaspoon, and another one before they go in on shift, and just to keep that system, keep it moving through their system. You're welcome. I'll tell you, the ladies will just love it. It makes such a difference to them.
Hey.
It makes such a difference to them. And
That's
the
amazing.
feedback I get is absolutely phenomenal. 2 little strategies there for the ladies that are working shift work makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And you know what? Whether you're female or male, give this a shot. I think it's great that you are sharing these systems or things that they could start to test with, right? Because everybody's gonna respond different to everything, right? And it's good that you are sharing this, because everybody's always looking for something. Like, I might even try it out. Why not, right? Like, it might benefit me, it might not, but it doesn't hurt to not try it out. So Roger, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really happy that you did open up the topic about things specifically for women, because when I do these podcasts, I'm thinking everything as from a general perspective, and it's not so much male or female. And I'm happy that you did open that up and really target that more towards women. Is there anything else that you feel would benefit women as well? Not even just from gut, maybe it might be mental, it could be physical.
I want to extend my hand to all of the ladies that do shift work, full stop. I really do, because ladies that do shift work suffer 10 times more than the men do. There is absolutely no doubt about it. It's well documented. Hormonally, women are different to men. The fact that they're dealing with that biological complication of their digestive tract as well. I just hope that the women that are listening to this, it will be an absolute brain explosion for them, that they sit there and go, oh my God, this just answers so much for me. I'm definitely going to try this, because it does make a big difference. But the other thing that we've got to look at with women as well is, and I just absolutely love my female clients, and I just want to hug them, because they're shift workers, they're girlfriends or wives, they're dealing with, they're mothers, so they've got children that they're trying to deal with.
Yep.
They're dealing with the stresses of shift work. They're dealing with the stresses. They've got husbands that are tapping them on the shoulder all the time. They just, you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, but for men, it is so much easier. But the girls, the ladies, what they need to do, another strategy that I really deeply implore for our females, is when you finish your shift, go home, have your hot shower, journal, meditate, go to bed. Bang, done. Do not stop by, and I know you're going to hate me for this, Spencer, and so is your partner. Don't stop by and do an F45 on the way home from for a HIIT class or a fit stop
I agree.
class.
I do not train after night shift. I agree with you 100%. No. I do not.
Okay, I'm glad.
No, I am on the same page.
You don't stress an already stressed body. Right.
Yes.
What people do not understand is, they think, oh no, because I've worked shift work, I've got to go and do this. No. I've got an exercise for you, and I'll get to that. But what I want to say is, Do not go and do an F45. You are not giving it everything anyway because you can't, because you're so fatigued.
Yeah.
Your body is already insulin resistant, and you're not going to get the adaptation from the training. In fact, it's going to have a negative impact.
Yes.
You're going to elevate your cortisol. It's actually going to have a reverse effect. It's actually going to have the opposite to what you're trying to achieve.
Yes.
You're also stimulating your central nervous system, and you're heightening that. How are you going to go home and go to sleep?
How? Yeah, how?
Go home, go to sleep, get that sleep. Don't worry about vacuuming the floor, doing the washing, doing what you've got to do with the kids and the husband and everything else. Forget all that.
Right.
You must prioritize your sleep.
I agree.
You must work through it. Journal. Empty your brain. Journal out. Have a little meditate. Lie in bed. Listen to a little bit of a calm or a headspace or whatever it is that you use. Shut your brain down. Get that sleep. The sleep is what is going to save your ass every single day.
Yes, I agree.
Then get up, and on your days off, smash yourself.
Yeah.
You will train so much better when you go to do an F45 on your days off. It doesn't hurt you to miss a training session when you're on night shift.
That's right.
It's actually beneficial to miss it.
That's right. Yeah.
But I do have an exercise for people if they want it.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to what you're saying, like, with my type of training, it's like, my sleep is priority number one. I do not wake up early before a day shift and sacrifice sleep to get that, hour 45 or whatever workout in, because like you just said, it's going to cause more harm than good. Make your sleep priority number one, because if you sleep good, your nutrition's going to be good. And if you don't take care of your sleep, your nutrition's not going to be good, and everything else is going to fall down that hill. And it's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect your motivation. And I'm so happy you brought that up, Roger, because sleep for me is number one priority. And that was something that was hard to share with my girlfriend, because she's a go-getter like me. She's very hardcore, and she will sacrifice things, and I'm like, you can't do that. And like, if you're trying to become a paramedic and you're going to be doing shifts, like, coffee and cutting back on your sleep is not going to make you successful, especially when you have to be working in stressful situations. And that goes for everybody as well.
Poor sleep leads to poor nutrition. There is no doubt about it. It is exactly the same as alcohol. Alcohol causes poor nutrition as well. We won't touch on that, but it causes poor nutrition, because not only has it got 7 calories per gram in alcohol, but it also clouds your judgment, because that's when you get your souvlaki on the way home. That's your kebab. That's when you go get your kebab. That's when you stop and get your pizza. Yep. That's when you do all of these things that cause you your problem. So it clouds your cleverness, right? And sleep impacts so much. Yeah. So much on those nutritional choices as well.
100%.
But I've got an exercise which I'm actually prescribing to my shift workers, which are making a massive difference to them. Huge difference. Because the body's stressed, we don't want to be hitting it with HIIT training, all right? So what I tell my shift workers to do, and I try and get my shift workers to do, and I really strongly encourage shift workers, is to do LIST training, low-intensity, steady-straight training, Spencer, as 65% of their maximum heart rate. Now, people might say, what's that? So if you get on a treadmill, if you work out what your 65% of your maximum heart rate is.
So how do they get that? How do they get their max heart rate?
Okay, so the formula is it's 220 minus your age equals, so 220 minus your age equals, and that number, then you multiply that number by 0.65 equals, and that gives you your 65% of your maximum heart rate.
Okay, awesome.
All right, 220 minus your age equals, multiplied by 0.65. Now, that will give you your maximum, the 65% of your maximum heart rate. By doing that, if you then jump on a spin bike, sit on a spin bike, and pedal yourself up, because everyone's got these fitness trackers on their wrists, they can all watch, or they've got the grips, that you can do that. There you go. Get your heart rate to 65% and pedal for 30 minutes. And just maintain within 3 or 4 beats either side of that. Now, for most people, that's somewhere between 120 and about 128, 130 beats per minute. It is very low, Spencer. It is designed to be very low. But what people don't realise is, at 65% of your maximum heart rate, the substrate that your body actually uses for energy is fat.
Yep.
All right. It puts you into a pure fat burning zone. It's burning the triglycerides out of your bloodstream.
Right.
Now, is it a fat burner? Technically, yeah. Is it going to burn fat off your body? No, not really. It's what it is. It's going to burn the stress out of your body, and it's going to burn all of that dormant triglycerides and things out of your body. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, those that are listening, if you were to get on a bike 2 or 3 times a week when you're feeling stress coming out of night shift and just do a 30-minute lift session, you're welcome again, because a 30-minute lift session at 65% of your heart rate will make you feel on top of the world. You can literally put an iPad on the bike and watch your favorite episode of something on Netflix while you're pedaling at 65% heart rate. You will hardly puff. You will hardly sweat. It's not about getting your heart rate to 180, and going, look at me, I've done 180. Right. Oh, yeah, look at all the fat that I'm burning. No, you're not burning fat. You're actually burning glucose.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right? You're not burning fat at all. You're burning glucose. You're burning glycogen out of your muscles once the glucose out of your bloodstream's gone. If you just sit at that 65% maximum heart rate and you maintain that, you actually burn the triglycerides out of your bloodstream, and you're using fat as a substrate for energy. Your body will just burn the fat. It won't burn the glucose at all, and it's just perfect. And the feedback, again, that I get from this, Spencer, is for people, try it. Just jump on the bike and just pedal at 65% heart rate. It's not about going hard.
Yep.
But you'll get off the bike or a treadmill. People will learn with a treadmill, put a treadmill on an angle and at a pace that you can get to 65% and just monitor that, get to that heart rate and stay on that heart rate, and you will, and keep going at that. This is another game changer for shift workers because it doesn't stress an already stressed body. It's not stimulating your central nervous system. You can still sleep. I used to go and get on the bike and just pedal and do that for half an hour before I went home, and I just found it so beneficial. So beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
And then when you do get home from night shift, a small protein and carbohydrate meal. Very important that people have a small protein and carbohydrate meal. Now, people will say to you, do not have carbs after 6 p.m. That myth's been blown to the smithereens.
Carbs help
the
body sleep.
That's exactly right, Spencer. Carbs help your body sleep. By putting carbohydrates into your body, if people actually think about it, if you have a carb-heavy meal, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to rock back on the couch and you just want to sleep, right. Everybody wants to sleep. So why wouldn't you just use that same theory for when you come home on night shift? Now, what I do, and I tell my clients as well, protein. Just mix protein powder into oats, minute oats. Get your oats. Just cover them in water, like 40 grams, 50 grams of oats is maximum. Cover them in a bit of water. Put them in the microwave oven for about 90 seconds and cook them. Put your scoop of your favourite protein powder in it. Give it a good stir. Have that. Go to bed. Enjoy your sleep. Amazing. Yeah. And the protein that you've put in there with those oats actually helps to preserve that lean muscle mass while you sleep, which is very, very important as well.
Very true. I did do that for some time, actually. I don't know. I'm very weird. I constantly flip-flop back and forth, and I just try different things, right? I'm at the moment, I guess I could say I'm at the moment, but where I'm just going straight to bed. I come home, I take my shower, I get comfortable, but I don't have like cravings and stuff like that either. When I get home, I'm not thinking about food, and even at nighttime, I'm not really thinking about food. So I'm very lucky that way. I just think because of the systems I've had in place throughout the years of just trying different styles of how I want to feel and be productive. And like I said, I did try the oatmeal and it worked. It was good, but for me, I was more excited about just getting into bed, and I find that was very helpful for me as well.
That's your priority.
Yeah, I was just like, get home, take out the dog, shower, and it's not even just that, right? Just go back to the habits. One of my habits stacking was I'm excited to go to bed because I'm also excited to read. When I read my book, I'm 2-3 pages, I'm gone, right? So I just created this addiction to just get into bed and read my book, read a really good novel, and get to bed. So I love that. It's another system that people can implement into their routine. And you know what? I wish I made a YouTube video on my sleep routine. I don't know if you might have seen it, but I did not mention adding some sort of carb and protein in there, and I wish I did, because that is also a very good system to implement. So thank you once again for sharing that.
Some people wake up hungry, and that's the reason why they wake up hungry. And some people also, because they've eaten, they find they have to go to the bathroom. And of course, Spencer, as you get older, that gets worse. There's no doubt about it.
I do wake up and I have to go to the washroom, so that's something I'm still trying to master.
Yeah. So this is also a problem. I'll give you a bit of a strategy on that as well.
Please.
So we tend to drink a lot of water overnight.
Right.
We need to drink water, and you obviously drink a lot of water. From about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, put a pinch of salt into your water, because salt helps retain water.
Okay.
So just try putting a pinch of salt into your water.
Okay.
And because you drink a lot of water as well, look, I think we've had this conversation. If you're a person that drinks 2.5 liters of water in a day,
it's always by me.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, it's always by me.
Yeah. I'm the same. I drink these like they're going out of fashion. That's the sparkling water, but I drink them like they're going out of fashion. But for shift workers as well, to maintain the water, and that find that they don't drink water from 3 o'clock onwards, you can still have the water, not as much, but just put a couple of pinches of salt in it. Like have a salt grinder at work and just grind some salt up and just put a couple of pinches of salt into your water. Yeah. Not only are you replenishing the electrolytes from the sodium, putting it back into your system as well, but sodium also retains water. So it does actually help you to retain water as well. So just try that and see if that makes a bit of a difference for you as
Roger,
well.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I did not, or I do not have any sort of plans or like tactics on trying to not wake up having to go to the washroom. So I am definitely going to implement that one there. So I'm really excited about that, because that's, I tried like cutting back the water a little bit, and then I'm super thirsty. And then, I got to the point where I would like try to just stay in bed and not get up, but I'm awake because I know I have to go to the washroom. And I was like, fall back to sleep, bro. You got this. You can fall back to sleep. And that didn't work either. And now I'm just at the point, I'm like, okay, I got to go to the washroom. I try not to even open my eyes. Like I put the blue light blocker glasses on. I don't even turn on the bathroom light. I'm just like, being a little shadow, right? And so that's my only tactic right now.
I'm hearing you loud and clear. Yeah. I'm hearing you loud and clear, because it's a first world problem, isn't it? It really we lie there, and if we had bloody well gone in the first place, we would have been
back to sleep already.
We would have been back asleep by now. And instead, we're sitting there saying, "Go to sleep, go to sleep." No, you don't need to go. Yes, you do. Oh, no, you don't. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You mentioned blue light blockers. I want to talk to you about those if we can.
Absolutely.
Do you wear the clear ones, or do you wear the yellow lens blue light blockers?
Aren't they the same thing?
No.
See, there's a big difference. I've been curious about that, because there's some people I see that have the tint in them, and then there's the ones that I have, which are the clear. But I do see a glare that comes off of the actual tint, off of the clear one. So I just made an assumption that they are the same thing, because you type it into Google, whatever, Amazon pops up, and they're like, those ones there are the ones that I actually would like to get. So there is a difference. I'll steer you in the right direction. There is a difference then.
I'll steer you in the right direction for that, Spencer, and I'll tell you why. You're in the summer there at the moment, so I would be fairly sure. Are you still taking this seriously with those on or not?
Yeah, absolutely. No, to me, I think more people I should be wearing them right now. It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. I'm trialing at the moment, and we're in the winter here in Australia, so
no way.
And we're way down the bottom of Australia too. So Melbourne, for people that don't realise, you look at the map of Australia, we're right down the very bottom, above the island. So it's still dark when we finish night shift and we're driving home. But in the summertime, like you, we're driving home in the daytime.
Right.
Now, if you think about it, Spencer, you sit in your crane overnight and it's dark, and you're just using light and all of that sort of stuff. I'm trialing at the moment, putting these on, right, at around about 5 a.m. and leaving them on from 5 a.m. onwards, right up until I get into bed. Because these block out the blue light, which is impacting massively on our melatonin.
Right.
Now, I'm trialing them. There is actual research that's been done by the company that produces these. Had an independent research done by Harvard. I honestly believe, now there is zero evidence supporting blue light blocking glasses at the moment, saying that you should wear them for this reason. But once again, it's going to be like meal timing. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that in time they're going to turn around and say to people that blue light blocking glasses are enormously beneficial. Yeah. It's just that the research hasn't been done because
majority of our devices,
they're fairly new, aren't they?
The majority of our devices now have the blue light option. So, I mean, like, you know, obviously somebody believes that dimming the light on your electronics can be also replicated in glasses as well. So I believe it. I unfortunately cannot wear them from the time I leave my crane, because we have to wear safety glasses from our crane all the way to our car, just because there's a lot of dust and debris that gets blown around. And so unfortunately, but as soon as I do get in the car, I do throw them on, because now it is sunny as soon as we finish work in the morning. And I'll wear them until I get into bed. But, you know, I'm happy that you're wearing them. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you wear the same safety glasses every day? Why don't you get them blue light blocked? Why don't you get that made? I think it's important.
I can't do that.
You can't. They won't let you. Yeah, it's all health and safety, isn't it?
It's all health and safety. So they actually do all the safety glasses for us. They are prescription as well. And I did try to get a tint on them because where I work is where the furnace is, so it's nice and bright. And I've tried.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even so, Spencer, even when you get to your car, putting them on in the car when you drive, I don't know how far you've got to drive home, but, you know, I'm lucky, but there are a lot of people that drive, you know,
some decent distance.
Anyway, without getting bogged down on it, what the analogy that I'm actually trying to make for people is that if you think about it, you're working overnight and then it's bright when you're driving home. Right. So you're actually suppressing the melatonin. You're telling your body. We don't realise that behind our eyes, where our eyes are, where the optic nerves cross over, is a sensor that is registering daytime, nighttime. You know, and we need to block the blue light from coming there. You know, we need to block that blue light from coming through. And I strongly suggest to people that they have those blue light blockers with the yellowy coloured lens in it, and wear those all the way until you get not outside and then take them off when you get inside, because there is blue light everywhere. In everything, right? And it suppresses the melatonin and stops us sleeping. So what we want to do is we really need to be putting those blue light blockers on as it's starting to get light and leaving them on until we take them off and put our shade on when we go to bed. You know, our eye mask. Right. I don't know. Do you wear an eye mask?
Not. My room's pretty blacked out. Like I'm. Perfect. Yeah, and it's hard. Like I was wearing it for some time, but it'd fall off. But I just made sure that my room was completely black. I got Devices actually just came out with a video about how I black out my room, and so far so good. Haven't had any issues with that. But yeah, like you said, is making sure you're wearing those blue light blockers from the time that you put them on to the time you go to bed. Okay, Roger, we have talked longer than I expected, and I love this. No, don't be sorry. This is great. I want to continue talking. It's just getting a little bit later here. I do have to work in the morning, and dinner for me too. But I have two questions I would love to ask you. So what is the funniest thing that you've seen on a night shift?
Oh,
I know. Curveball here.
You could have given me a little bit of warning on that. My mind is racing.
There's so many, right?
I can tell you a funny story. I'll tell you a very, very funny story that I jumped out of the car one day to chase a perpetrator, an offender, and I raced, and one hit the fence and went over, the second one hit the fence and went over, the third one hit the fence and went over, and I took off after it, and I jumped up on the fence to go over, and the gate swung open, and I was facing the opposite way.
Oh, no.
I was facing the direction that I was coming from, looking over the fence back at my colleague who was running towards me.
He's like, what are you doing? Get off the door, stop playing. And it's almost, it's funny. It's like those skits where you see people trying to, break down a door, and then you have that one person that just comes over and just opens the doorknob and just opens it.
Turns the doorknob. Yeah. Well, it was sort of like that. But
Oh, jeez.
I always resented the fact that they were able to hit the fence and go over,
Yeah.
hit the fence and go over, hit the fence and go over. But I hit the fence and, of course, the gate just swung open and I was facing back in the direction that I'd come from. Anyway, it's one of those moments in life.
That's hilarious. Okay, the next one is, what's the funniest... How do I want to say this? What's the funniest thing that you have done being sleep deprived?
Oh, I can tell you, I've answered the picture on the wall.
Oh, nice.
Like I had a back in the day. Well, see, I go back a long way, Spencer. So I go back pre-mobile phones because our mobile phones. But I've actually picked up like there was a thing on the wall, and I could hear the phone ringing, and I just grabbed the thing and started. And it was just it wasn't even the phone, I've done that.
Oh, geez, that's great. It's funny what the mind does to you, eh? When you're just so tired.
But you are asleep. But how many times have you done that though, Spencer? We do suffer from that brain fog, but it's dangerous because they liken it. They liken night shift, but the time you get to the end of your night shift, they liken it to being intoxicated, like to the level of being over 0.05. I'm not sure what your legal limit is where you are, but by the time you get to the end of night shift, you really are. You got to really concentrate. Yeah. If you don't concentrate, you can make some severe mistakes.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky that my commute is, I think, 5 minutes. I'm extremely grateful for that. But I've heard some stories from other coworkers that they drive 30 minutes, they've fallen asleep at a red light, and I've had that before too. I used to work another job where I was a welder, and it was shift work, and I was driving home. I think my commute at the time wasn't as long. It was about 15-20 minutes, but same thing. I fell asleep at a red light, and you know what? That could have caused a lot of issues if my foot were to not have been on the brake, and it's so scary.
Yep.
Right?
It is. It's very, very dangerous. Yeah. Spencer, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast.
Thank you, Roger.
I sincerely appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I still say, you stay there, I'll stay here, and we'll just corner them all, and we'll just corner all those shift workers in between us. Because if there's 75 million in the US, I don't know how many there are in Canada, but it's obviously going to be relative.
Mm-hmm.
Like 10% of Australia is shift workers. You're going to find 10% of Canada are going to be shift workers as well. If 20-odd% of the US are shift workers, let's just corner them from all corners of the globe and we'll just beat them into submission. We'll help them. And that's what we're there to do. That's what we're there to help them. So I'm going to be doing a lot more with my social. I'm having my website built at the moment where I'll be pumping out blogs, and I'll be doing, I'm having a back end built into it as well to make a difference for it so that I can handle what's happening. I'm actually in the process of having a digital product created, which will be for shift workers and shift work and nutrition. Awesome. And I'll be making that available for people and things along those lines there as well. So I'm happy to help. I'm happy to have anybody reach out. I'm happy to have people to message me in the DM and do that. I do a walk and talk with Rog every day. I know some people probably just tune out and tap through it. I understand that, but there's a lot of people that get a lot of value out of it as well. That I put things up that, people ask me questions and I make a topic out of it and talk about it. If people are asking, they want to know. If one person wants to know, you can guarantee there's a number of people that want to know. So once again, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you're doing as well, Roger. And I love your social media. It is very, very informative, and don't stop. Honestly, you are super motivational and inspiring, and people need to hear this podcast. Roger, where can people find you? Share all your tags.
They can, okay. So I'm actually on LinkedIn as Roger Sutherland because I want to branch into this health and this health and well-being corporate wise. Down the track, I'll be doing that. You can find me on Instagram at a_healthy_shift, and I'm also on Facebook as A Healthy Shift. All one word.
Amazing. So listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, please head on over to Roger's Instagram, follow him on LinkedIn, follow him on Instagram, get in touch with him. He's going to support you, help you every step of the way. Like I said, everything that I have read on his is very bang on and similar to what I'm doing. And it's amazing that he is going above and beyond to empower all shift workers, men, women, law enforcement, every single corner around the world. with the information that they need to be successful, to feel good, stay fit, control their cravings, and just stay educated. It's so important. So Roger, once again, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And I feel like we need to do a number 2.
We can certainly schedule that down the track once people have recovered from this one.
Absolutely. All right, Roger. Well, thank you once again. Have yourself a wonderful day, because it is morning for you. And
Yes, it is.
Enjoy your day. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Thank you so much, Spencer. I appreciate it.
I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.
You will.
Bye.